Today, we are going to discuss about what yoga actually does to your brain, and we are going to take a scientific viewpoint. Have you ever wondered why you feel calmer, clearer, or just lightheaded after yoga? It's just not in your head. Well, actually, it is in your head, but not in the way you think. A brand new systematic review research, which was conducted in 2026, looked at 23 brain imaging study, fMRI, EEG, of healthy people. And the question was simple: does yoga actually change your brain? The answer is yes. But how is this fascinating and also a little surprising? Let me go through the study in detail. Here is the thing: most of us think of yoga as stretching or breathing or doing some awkward and difficult poses. But from a brain perspective, yoga is a full nervous system workout. This study pulled together every high quality study on healthy people who have no disease, no injuries, just regular humans who practiced yoga, and they looked inside their brains. What they found is that yoga changes three big things: the structure of your brain, which is actually the gray matter; the function of your brain, that is how different regions of the brain talk to each other; and third is the brain waves, the electrical rhythms of your mind. So it's not magic, it is neuroplasticity. Your brain is physically reshaping itself. One slow breath at a time, structure changes. So let's discuss with structure. The study says that several studies have found that long-term yoga practitioners have more gray matter in key areas like the insula, the hippocampus, and the parts of prefrontal cortex. What does it matter? The insula is your brain's interoception center. It helps you feel what's happening inside your body. A thicker insula means you are better at noticing tension, emotion, or relaxation before they overwhelm you. The hippocampus is your memory and stress regulation center. More gray matter there is linked to better emotional resilience. One study even found that more years of yoga practice, the more gray matter in the left hippocampus. But this is important. Not every study agreed. One large population study found there's less hippocampal volume in yoga meditation practitioners. Why? Probably because they lumped together very different yogic practices into and tried to observe the effect. So the takeaway: not all yoga is the same for your brain. But when you do sustained mindful practice, your brain tends to build thicker, stronger regions for self-control and body awareness. Now let us talk about functional changes, that is how brain regions talk. Now let's talk about connectivity, how brain areas chat with each other. This is where the study gets really interesting. One of the biggest discoveries is about default mode network, or what we call DMN. The DMN is active when your mind wanders, when you are replaying old arguments, worrying about future, or just not focused on anything. Too much DMN activity is linked to anxiety, depression, and rumination. What did the studies find? Yoga reduces DMN activity, especially in posterior cingulate cortex and the medial prefrontal cortex. In simple language, yoga quiets the self-talk channel, the voice that says you are not good enough or what if something bad happens. It's get softer or sometimes even quiet or silenced. One study showed that the experienced yoga meditators had less connectivity in DMN during rest. Another found that yoga practice reduced connectivity between the amygdala, your fear center, and other regions of the brain. That means you become less reactive. The alarm system settles down. And here is a beautiful finding. Several studies reported increased connectivity between amygdala and the anterior cingulate cortex. That's the part your brain that's a part of the brain that helps you to regulate emotions. So your fear center gets better at talking to your calm down center. This is not suppression, but rather a skill that is acquired through yoga. And now let us talk about the electroencephalograph findings or EEG findings, your brain waves on yoga. The study also looked at EEG studies, brainwave measurements, and the pattern is remarkably consistent. Yoga increases alpha and theta waves, the ones that is associated with relaxed alertness, creativity, and inner calm. In one study, novice meditators showed higher alpha activity than experienced ones during certain conditions, meaning even beginners get benefits quickly. I repeat, even beginners get benefit quickly. Experienced practitioners, on the other hand, showed more gamma activity, fast brain waves linked to heightened awareness and insight. So there is a kind of progression. First, you learn to relax, then you learn to wake up. One study even found that a single session of Yoga Nidra, which is a form of yogic sleep, changes DMN connectivity in the brain. Now, in a way, this is correlated with lower anxiety. You don't need to meditate for 10 years to feel this. Your brain starts shifting the very first time you slow down and breathe. But also, this study brings out some honest truth, that is the contradictions and limitations of all the studies which this study reviewed. Now, to being honest, the review found inconsistent results across the study. And one of the possible reasons could be that first, yoga means different things. Some studies looked at only asanas or postures, others looked at meditation only, and some mixed, that is asana, pranayam, and meditations. Second, it could be that the experience level vary quite differently, from 2 weeks of training to maybe 30 or 40 years of daily practice. Third, the control groups were often weak. You can't easily blind people to whether they are doing yoga or not. And finally, most of the studies were cross-sectional, meaning they compared long-term practitioners to non-practitioners at a particular time point. So it's like comparing maybe a professional athlete to a couch potato. Yes, their brains are different, but is that because of yoga or because people who are naturally calm and focused are drawn to yoga? We need more longitudinal studies following beginners over the time period. Those exist, but they are fewer. So the science says yoga correlates with brain changes, but the causality is still being researched upon. So what this means to you and How can you make use of this study? Despite the limitations, the evidence is strong enough to act on. So, after reading this research on the impact of yoga on brain, you need to understand yoga is not a cure-all, but it is a very safe, very accessible way to train your brain for better emotional regulation, less reactivity, and more body awareness. You don't need to twist into some awkward posture. You don't need to chant unless you want to do. Even 10 minutes of slow, mindful breathing with gentle movement has been shown in these studies to shift the brain connectivity. So, if you are someone who feels overwhelmed or stuck in your head or just tired of your own anxious thoughts, just try this. Every morning, sit quietly for 5 minutes, breathe slowly, and make this Jnana Mudra. And try to observe the breathing. Place maybe one hand on the stomach or the belly, and just observe initially how with every breath the movement of your abdomen happens. And if you want more such videos, please feel free to subscribe this channel. Thank you very much for joining me today on this episode. Namaste.